At the bottom is where the sturgeon spawn. They're a very unique fish. They are so different.
You watch these kids catch them with a net and bring them to shore. That fish just waits for you to get done with it. The researcher just pets him as it goes by. It's just amazing to watch.
A sturgeon guard is someone that volunteers their time to make sure nobody comes and poaches them.
We're here as a show of presence to keep our sturgeon safe. Sturgeons come up the river, they are only interested in spawning. They don't care if you're right beside them. So we're here to make sure no one's gonna go help themselves to one of our fish.
Anything you're going to do takes effort. And if you don't put some effort in, you're going to get nothing out of it. You know, whether it's saving the sturgeon or saving a tree or building your house. It takes people that have a drive.
There's a lot of young kids that may never know what they are if we don't do what we're doing. They are the same as they were in the waters when the dinosaurs roamed the earth. They haven't changed a bit. They're just one of the few dinosaurs we got left. So they're well worth saving.
Sturgeon are a magnificent species. They've been around for about 130 million years. I often talk with various community groups, and inevitably somebody will come up to me and say, wow, these fish are like dinosaurs. And my answer is always, these fish are dinosaurs. 130 million years is just a phenomenal amount of time for any species to be around on planet Earth, but has really only had problems for the last 200. Coincidentally, that's about the time that European settlement came to North America.
As we logged the area, that caused the sediment that was held in place by the roots of those trees to enter into our waterways.
Runoff began to cover up the spawning areas. And then at the same time, we began to dam our rivers and eliminate access to historical spawning areas for sturgeon.
They were considered kind of a nuisance species, so they were speared at very high rates.
They were poached because of caviar, sturgeon eggs. They were trapped, they were speared on rivers where they came up to spawn.
It caused a devastating impact on the fishery.
Now we have a species that has been extirpated in Saginaw Bay. There just aren't any. And there is only 1% of the sturgeon population remaining in the Great Lakes.
Now, as we shift forward, we had recognized the impacts that we had had on these places, and that led to a lot of the restoration that took place to improve our rivers.
Once we began to remove dams and improve habitat, we got to the point of saying, yeah, now we have this opportunity to bring this species back. If we can put some fish in these rivers, we think that they can get back to areas where they can successfully spawn and start building a native population again. In about 2017 is when we began the restoration project, and since then have restored approximately 7,000 sturgeon into the system. We drop them in the water, and we keep our fingers crossed.
It's our 35th year doing the gillnet portion of the fish community survey. This is how we really monitor the health of the fish community, looking for changes and trends in abundance of all the different species. It's also how we watch for invasive species that might show up, as well as to track the restoration of native species that have been depressed over the different decades. Lake sturgeon is one of those species that we are working to see recovered in Saginaw Bay. Historically, they were very abundant here.
325, 486, 441,
Each species has a certain niche or a role to play in the ecology of the bay, so everything's important. And lake sturgeon is just one part of that. These efforts to restore them, that's just one step. Of course, what these fish are going to have to do is survive long enough before we're going to start to see them in our nets. We got to get that sturgeon still. You never know what you're going to get. If we do things right, there's enormous recuperative powers to these Great Lakes. They can come back, and they can come back big and fast sometimes when everything is in place. It's almost too early to tell, but it seems like all the pieces are in place. As long as the stocking can continue, if we take the long view out, maybe a generation, we can see abundant lake sturgeon again if we show the resolve and commitment.
There is not a spawning population anywhere in the Saginaw Bay system. So to build that spawning population, we had to go elsewhere. We want to maintain a variety in genetics. So we're using two fish populations. We're using a fish population from the Black River system in northern Michigan. Those fish are captured when they are just hatched from eggs. They are brought back to a hatchery where they are grown and then sent down to the Saginaw system when they're about 5 inches long. The other population that we're using is the St. Clair River population from Michigan and Canada. The gametes are collected there. They're then taken to the hatchery at Genoa, Wisconsin, and then they're trucked back here when those fish are about 5 or 6 inches long, and they are released in combination with each other.
Lake sturgeon in Black Lake are one of the remaining strongholds in the Great Lakes region. Because this population is healthy, it's genetically diverse, we can take fish from this system and we can use those to restore other systems throughout the state, and of course the Saginaw system. The fish that we have here are locked in by dams on the upstream and the downstream side of the lake. Because the fish in this system can't emigrate, they can't bring new individuals into the system, it allows us to make inferences about individuals and the population that you just simply couldn't do everywhere else. Really, the things that we can study in a reductionist way allows us to have a great deal of lake sturgeon knowledge. This is arguably the best studied population of lake sturgeon in the entire world. I have the coolest job in the world, and I have the opportunity to chase 100-pound fish around a stream every day, and that's really quite cool. Black River is quite shallow, so we have a unique ability to jump in the river with them. We use long-handled nets to scoop these fish off the bottom. It is a very unique capture method. Nobody else can really do it this way. And it allows us to have kind of this personal relationship with the fish more than just making sure that we're doing good restoration efforts. You get that head into the net and you pull these fish up out of the water, and sometimes they'll let you work them up and they'll go quietly for you, and other times you might have a nice nosebleed in the river from a good whack from a caudal fin. I gotta tell you, it's the best workout I've ever done in my life. Lifting a 150-year-old, 100-pound sturgeon out, doing a complete workup, and then walking back upstream and doing it again. At the end of the day, it's always a pleasure to work up these fish. Beyond all of that, personally, I think about a quote that my 10-year-old at the time son said, "We did harm, and it's our responsibility to make up for that harm." We have a responsibility, I think, as a species. We now have the knowledge and the understanding that we can restore these species and bring populations back to their former glory.
We're at the start of the St. Clair River. We have the largest free-ranging sturgeon population in the whole Great Lakes. I kind of feel like a superhero down there because you can fly, you can levitate. It's a great adventure out there. Plus sturgeon that have been here for millions of years, it's just incredible. When they're spawning, they treat a diver just like we're one of them. They'll come and cuddle with us, they'll smack us in the legs, they'll kind of smother you. I like to think of it as smothering you with kisses. I've been spawned twice, which is a very interesting experience from a 6-foot fish. It's just an amazing feeling to be down there and being able to bring up this footage and show people that the Great Lakes are more than just a big pond of water. We'd like to think of it as a true ecosystem that is very important. It's all here and it's just amazing to see.
The early 2000s, the local scuba divers alerted us that there was a sizable population in the St. Clair River and Lake St. Clair. Fast forward to 2017, 2018, identifying a source population for using fish for reintroductions in places like the Saginaw Bay system. That's why we're here. The adults come to this site to reproduce. We collect them on the set lines and the gear that we use. The females carry the eggs, the males have the sperm. We will mix those together. Those fertilized eggs are taken back to a hatchery at Genoa National Fish Hatchery in Wisconsin. Those fish will be developed until they're about 5 or 6 inches long and then transported to the sites that they're going to be released on the Saginaw system.
In order to bring a fish species back, it takes the resources like the hatchery we're at today to raise fish.
It's kind of like farming. You raise something up from a seed or a small animal, and it's hard work. We're getting close. We're probably going to hold on to these for a few more weeks, and then we'll be stocking them out. Even though we're in southwestern Wisconsin, we go all over the place. Currently, we've got about 50,000 fish on station from 5 different sites around the Midwest and out as far as New York. There's been populations that have been extirpated for quite a while. No lake sturgeon whatsoever in these systems, and we're starting to see paybacks. We're getting some fish coming back into systems, and they're seeing fish that are spawning. Our end goal here is to have these fish out in the wild, doing their thing, reproducing on their own, being a part of the ecosystem.
We had to decide how many fish do we need to stock to achieve the long-term goals for this project. And one of the ways we're doing that is through acoustic telemetry and looking at survival rates. We insert a small transmitter into these age 0 fish.
We'll try to make a small incision here. All right, we recheck the tag, 37135. Slide into the fish. Kind of the finished product right there.
All right. And then this fish is going over to recovery. Within 10 minutes, they're gilling strong and ready to roll. You can see the ones in the tank, so they're hardy fish.
When one of those fish with an acoustic transmitter goes by an acoustic receiver, it'll download that information on that receiver. That gives us a much quicker snapshot of what's going on in the system. We know they're surviving, we know where they're moving, and it gives us insights into what the future might look like.
It's my cleaning lady's year off. That's why it's so messy in here. I was a Navy diver from 67 to 71. I saw the sturgeon on my very first dive out there in the St. Clair River. Ever since then, I've never get tired of them. I got 500 dives in every year. Now I've slowed down because I'm a little bit older, but never gets boring because you get to see things that most folks don't get to see. These are just rocks that came from the bottom of the river.
It looked like E.T. I say it looks like a cell dividing. Mitosis, Casper the Ghost. All kind of different fossils in this one. Okay, ready? When we're diving down at the river, people come by and ask you questions about them. And when little kids show interest in it, that's a real added bonus to see their eyes light up. They're always asking questions of what you see down there. So it's just nice to be able to show them a picture of a sturgeon or a carving. I always have a carving in the van to show them. It could spur someone into wanting to learn more about them. It's just nice to share the experience. I really don't know what it is about the sturgeon itself, but it seems like from coast to coast, people know about them. What captured your interest about them? A few minutes of sanding and apply a finish, ready to hang on the wall.
To get these fish back in the water in the Saginaw system, we host 4 releases 2 times a year, all held on the tributaries. The 4 rivers that we're doing this on are impacted rivers. Rivers like the Flint, for example, which was one of our most highly impacted rivers.
It takes a village to bring a species like this back from the brink of extinction.
Bringing people down to the Flint to show that things are a lot better than they were, I think has been critically important to the community.
Having lived through the Flint water crisis and hearing how poisoned people became, it's been a great education for me to learn how clean the water actually is. Clean enough to have a threatened species released back into the water.
If we want people to care for our communities, to care for our environment at large, we need to give them opportunities to be part of the change. By supporting that glorious little dinosaur fish, it brings us hope, and it empowers us and it empowers our kids when they get to be a part of it.
When you spend time connecting to something, it becomes a part of who you are and what your values are. Conservation is a dance. We need to protect things and leave them be, but we also have to interact with them enough to know that they're there and to love them and value them. And so the sturgeon is this beautiful thing together where we can interact with them. So you get to build that personal connection, and then they're free to do the thing that they need to do. That's what's so powerful about it, is that you can put it into the hands of a child or an adult, and they're connected now, and they continue to be connected. They have a stake in it now.
Sturgeon. Oh, we got one.
You asked and you received.
Oh, wow.
You doing shots now?
I was talking tequila, but I don't know.
This is the 4th fish we've caught in 35 years. Really just over the last few years that we've seen any, then they're all been hatchery fish. So this is a really positive sign that the planting is working. If they're showing up in this survey, then we know that they have to be of a pretty substantial abundance out there.
To have that fish come on board is really the product of a lot of other people's work. And I just happened to be in the right place at the right time to see sort of the fruit of that labor. And then to hold that is humbling in some ways, and it's very exciting at the same time. It's just one small moment in a much longer process, but it's one of the more exciting ones when we get to see them come back and see that they have survived.
There's no question that the sturgeon are back. We are not only seeing people catch these fish when they're out ice fishing or open water fishing, but we're able to track them through the use of pit tags and through the transponders that we have out in the lake. Beyond that, hearing people talk about them, the media that covers these restoration events. We have sturgeon in the classroom helping kids understand the importance of these. It's been a phenomenal increase in knowledge and interest.
If you go back 10 years ago, sturgeon was not something that was being discussed in our region. And now, average, ordinary citizens are talking about sturgeon. Like, it's starting to be in our culture. People were ready to be excited for this fish. What the sturgeon is doing for us here is showing people that our nature right here is valuable, it matters, and it's exciting. For a lot of people, it starts with a 5-inch fish that they got to hold. And that starts empowering them to make changes, and that is where we get better. That's where our ecosystems get healthier.
Extinction is not predetermined. Just because there's only 1% left doesn't mean it's the countdown to 0%. We've been able to come together and figure out what the solution is so that we can look back on it and our kids can look back on it and say, they did something about it. They were able to fix it.